Prize winner to date. She's the most well-known advocate for the education of girls and women. And by a sheer stroke of luck, she's here with us today. So please give a round of applause to the one and only Malala Yousafzai. Hello. Welcome. Sit down. There's water there as well. And honestly, I mean, I can't believe my luck. I always say that FT Women in Business is the day when I question all my life choices, because you meet such incredible women doing amazing things, but I also get to interview them, so it's a real pleasure for me. Now, I'd really like to start with the idea that we first got to know you, and people said you are the most famous teenager in the world. Now you sit before us here today, you are a woman, a fully fledged woman. What do you think? Do you think people ever struggle to kind of reconcile that you have grown up, in a way?
In some ways, yes. I still meet people who think I'm in school. They're shocked that I'm married or I have graduated from university, but I'm like, we are all aging. I wish I could stop this. I would love to be a teenager right now, but these years have helped me grow. I have learned so much through my work, through my time in college, and through the work that we're doing for girls' education at Malala Fund, but also these personal developments like getting married and just spending more time with my friends who are incredible people I found at college, and they have helped me grow and mature as a person, as an individual.
And I've always been curious. I mean, I guess if you go to school like in Birmingham or you're at university in Oxford, there must be such a buzz when people know that you're in the room. Did you find it easy to make friends and have those experiences that so many of us just take for granted?
It was a lot more difficult at school because I was a latecomer, and then at university because I knew everybody was new. So I said, I'm gonna actually go and speak to everybody. So I made a lot of friends at college, and to be honest, that was the most wonderful time. I'm still connected to all of them, and they have become like my sisters, my buddies, and we talk about everything and anything.
And so earlier this year, you made a really special trip. You returned to your ancestral village in Pakistan. Was that an emotional homecoming for you?
It was an emotional trip. It was a memorable trip because I was going to Shangla, which is my parents' birth village, after 13 years. And that is one of those places where I would spend my childhood, and I would see how education was a dream for many of those girls. They did not have a higher secondary school there, so a lot of the girls were not able to continue their education after primary school in that village. And it's up in the mountains, so a lot of organizations would not even go there to do a project. When we started Malala Fund, my first goal was that we make it happen in places where it's most difficult.
Yeah.
So we took on that project. We dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize money and did more fundraising to start building a school. And we wanted a state-of-the-art school. And I had been learning about it. I had been looking at presentations and documents about this school and just hearing about these incredible girls who had started learning there. But this year I finally met them, and I was looking at the mountains and the rivers and just enjoying the beauty and just, enjoying my time in my hometown. But what was really giving me hope and for the future was this one school, and how it has truly transformed that community. These girls were ambitious. They were participating in debates and speeches and playing chess and basketball and cricket, and just looking at how they were thriving and they were promising a better future to themselves and to their community has made it like the most memorable time for me.
Was it very validating to see that actually all the work that you've done through the Malala Fund was really actually paying off?
Yeah, so this is more like a legacy project to us because Malala Fund focuses on grant making and advocacy, and we are focused on securing the right to education and securing resources for education. And we work nationally in our priority countries. We work globally as well in the global conversations around protecting the right to education. And looking at this project has helped me realize how important it is for us to actually show decision makers and stakeholders that it is possible for us to create good schools, to create the best schools for girls, for boys. And in Pakistan, there has been this concept for a very long time that these areas are hard to reach. You will end up getting a ghost school, students won't show up, these schools wouldn't work. And you realize that when you have a good policy, a good system in place, you can make these things happen. So we are able to create good quality schools in any part of the world. And I hope that that is the message that stakeholders take away from it. And it has inspired a lot of stakeholders in Pakistan.
Fantastic. And now, I mean, the trip, it's not an easy trip. You don't just, get to fly in and drive in. You take a lot of security. And I know that the Taliban they've threatened, if you come back, we'll target you again. How do you kind of have that bravery and courage to remain defiant? And do you think it's important to resist in that way, to say, no, I will turn up, I will come back?
For me, I really value peace in the world. And there are moments when I look outside the window and I see that there's no bombing. We don't hear gunshots. And I have treasured this moment like again and again, because every night I'm grateful that we can sleep in peace. So when I think about what happened in Swat Valley to us from 2007 till 2009, I know that we are lucky. But when it comes to the Taliban, I think they're not just a group of men. It's actually an ideology that threatens women and girls for just simply wanting to be equal humans and wanting to have equal rights. And that is an ideology that's everywhere. So in that way, I don't think we are safe anywhere. And that concerns me about the future of women. When we look at what's happening in Afghanistan, where the Taliban are back in control and they have imposed a gender apartheid on women, systematically oppressing them. Girls have not seen their school for 3.5 years. Women have been banned from university. Women cannot go to work. They cannot be in the government. They have lost their jobs. And if they dare to disobey any of these rules, they're punished for it. So it is a systematic oppression that the Taliban impose, and Afghan women call it a gender apartheid, and they want it to be part of the international law in the Crime Against Humanity Treaty, so we can hold extremist groups like the Taliban to account. For me, I think the way I think about fighting back is to educate more girls, is to empower more girls.
By doing. And obviously, in preparation for this interview, I watched a lot of footage of you, and I was just absolutely astounded that, even at such a young age, you'd address the UN, you would, sit around the table with world leaders. One that springs to mind is President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria at the time that the Chibok girls went missing. And you spoke with such passion and such poise. Where does that drive come from, and that bravery?
When I'm in a room with a world leader, I think about girls, and I know that I am not there to speak for myself. I'm there to speak on behalf of girls. And that gives me courage, because girls are so brave. So yes, we have to call on leaders. We have to actually speak to them directly. I don't believe in calling out leaders or, shouting at them. I'm like, we are going to nicely bring the voices of girls to you directly and question you, because you need to be held accountable.
Yeah, I guess there are different ways of exercising power, and I think you have a very quiet, steely way about you. And it's quite interesting, I think, the parallels between you, maybe, for example, Greta Thunberg. She's someone who was inspired by you, and she's forged her own way. Have you guys ever met? Do you have a relationship? Do you ever give her advice?
Yes, we have met, and I'm inspired by her. We met when I was in college, and I told her, I'm skipping my school day for you. So I think she's doing incredible work, and she is reminding youth that they have so much power in their voice, and they can mobilize a movement for climate justice, for social justice. And young people, they are the future. And what I love about the activism of young people is that they are not accepting this idea where they're told that when you get older, you will make some change happen. But for now, focus on, your school, your studies. And they're challenging us. They're like, we don't have a safe future. We can't live in an unjust society. So young people are, I look up to them, to be honest, and I learned so much from them. And it's important for us to give our support to what they are saying. I think a lot of people sort of bully them and target them. Well, say it this way, don't say it that way, or they get scrutinized a lot. And I feel like we should be more focused on the message that they're giving us and not calling them off for like, oh, you are a teenager and you know, you seem to be shouting. That's not our job. Our job should be to listen to them, because they're talking about our safety. They're talking about the Earth's safety. They're talking about all of us.
And as the mother of a young girl, I can attest to the fact that they're very powerful beings. She's 5 and she's already going to take over the world. But I think there's something really, you know, seeing the world through a child's eyes. I think they see justice quite simply, and they have such a strong sense of what is right and what is wrong. But then as you go into the world, you realize that it's more complicated. And sometimes I think society, or adults perhaps, kind of, you know, you just touched upon it, kind of sort of beat that out of them. How have you found, I guess, that transition of, becoming an adult and thinking, is it as simple as you thought it would be?
I wish it was. I was hoping it will be, but it wasn't. And I realized that there is there are many options in front of us which we can take. So one priority for me was actually the advocacy work that I do through Malala Fund, which is a nonprofit I started 10 years ago. And I really believe in the power of collective activism. So we give grants to local activists, and we have supported more than 400 activists and organizations in more than 10 countries, supporting their work to change policies, to do research, to empower more girls. And that work continues. Our goal is to raise $100 million in the next 5 years. And we allocate half of our budget towards supporting local activists. So, I hope that, and our target is actually adolescent girls, the secondary education, because that's where we see a huge gap in funding. That's where we see a huge dropout as well. And gender-related issues start to impact girls more at that age. Then at the same time, I was also thinking about, how do we change perspective, how women are seen? Are we actually giving women power? Are we actually giving them the opportunity to tell their own stories? And that's why I started a production company a few years ago to collaborate with female writers and artists so that they can bring their stories to screen. And I think the perspective change is a bigger long-term mission. At the same time, I've been really keen on supporting women in sports, supporting women in other fields as well, and thinking about not just like inspiring young girls to believe in themselves and go and follow their dreams, but that we actually are addressing the fact that there may not be enough opportunities for them, there may not be space for them, and we need to go and fix those problems as well.
Yeah. So thank you. And you touched upon two cool things that you're doing. One is the production company, Extracurricular. So you had a 4-year deal with Apple, is that correct? Yes. And you've produced 2 documentaries, one about the elderly free divers in South Korea, and then also Bread and Roses, which is about the women in Afghanistan after the Taliban took over. Are you proud of those projects?
I'm really proud of those projects because through both of them, we tell the story of women's resilience. And in the documentary on Afghan women, you see how these 3 working women lose their jobs, lose their rights within days, within months, when the Taliban take over. And they start filming how they're protesting against the Taliban. When you watch the documentary, you feel a sense of hopelessness. And what's worse is when you go and research what's happening in Afghanistan, the situation has only worsened since that documentary was filmed. And the Taliban have issued more than 100 decrees and edicts, majority of which are targeting women, telling them that if you cannot be seen from the window of your room outside, your voice cannot be louder than a specific frequency, and in every way, a woman's body, her clothing, her voice is controlled, and they are just limited from every opportunity. So it is a form of systematic oppression. It is an apartheid based on gender that we should really question our international system and ask, is there protection for women or not? And right now, I think there isn't enough, and that's why advocating to codify gender apartheid is so important. And that's why I'm supporting the Afghan women activists in this campaign.
Fantastic. And now you're synonymous with girls' education, but at the moment, it's kind of like you're going in a different direction with access to sports for women and girls. How did that come about? Are you a sporty person?
Um, I had passion for watching sports, but I loved cricketers. So my husband, I found out, was working in cricket. I assumed he was a cricketer. I met him, we got married, and I found out, he has never confirmed nor denied if he can play cricket. But to this day, I have not seen him play cricket. That remains a mystery, but we both love watching sports together. We have been going to these women's sports games as well, and we just have been seeing the atmosphere at a women's soccer, at a women's tennis, at a women's cricket game, and how empowering it is, how it's giving a message of resilience and self-esteem to girls. So I do see a very strong connection between empowering girls and helping them to believe in themselves and investing in women's sports. And and we have been looking into this for a few years now, and just looking at the fact that there are still many areas in which there are not enough opportunities for women in sports. There has been no investment in women's sports leagues and teams. We are seeing a global momentum right now, so I feel like the timing is very right. So we both have been working on a project for a while, and we call it recess, because I think about a school recess time where boys can kick a ball and think about any sports and imagine a career for themselves. We want girls to have the same opportunities. And for that, we need to invest. I do believe that resources and capital are the key drivers to changing things for women. So that's something that we'll be looking into.
And I think sport is actually such a powerful medium, because even though it's very physical, it can also be really great for your mental health. Is there anything that you do in your free time to, I guess, decompress?
Yes, so I do play sports. I love gym. I do running. I started playing golf as well, and it started when I saw my husband, and his shots were just turning, to the left, to the right, and I said, "Why can't you just hit it straight?" And he's like, "Oh, you think it's easy? You try it." And I tried. Of course it went straight. So that's the day when I gained my confidence, and I thought I could just do anything. But again, I have been taking lessons for like 2 years, and that's when I show all of my self-confidence, and I'm like, I'm really good at it. Yeah.
And what do you hope to achieve with Research? So it's an investment platform. You're going to raise quite a bit of money. Is there anything that you'll be focusing on, perhaps from even like an ownership point of view? Because I think when it comes to sports, there's obviously what happens on the pitch or the field, but there's also what happens in boardrooms, etc.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because when we talk about investing in women's sports, it's not just increasing women's presence on the field, but also increasing women's ownership in sports. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. So I have been talking to incredible women who are pioneers of gender equality, and how we can bring them all together to create more opportunities for women. My goal is to see women at all levels in sports shining, having more ownership, having more presence, and we promote the message of gender equality through that, and we treat women's sports as a business, because that's where I feel we're not doing enough. It has to be treated as business, and we need to engage more women in it.
Now, once upon a time, I think there was this idea, when you were much younger, people had asked whether you thought you might go into politics, for example. Do you still hold that view, or have you found that maybe there are other ways for you to use your power and influence?
I mean, we had a former prime minister speak here, and I was listening to the New Zealand former prime minister, Jacinda, a few days ago. And I think what you find learning from these incredible female leaders, especially, is that it's one part of the bigger change that you want to see. Politics is not always the final and the only way to make change happen. So for me right now, I do not think that I am qualified enough to actually go and take a responsibility of a country. I wish I had that much confidence as a lot of the men in the world, but I really care about the country and the people, so I will not put that at risk for my own, overconfidence. I do believe that we need to think about more ways to bring change. And for me, it's really the change that matters. That's what I want to see in the end. And it's empowering people. It's bringing equal opportunities for women and girls. And I believe there's like many other ways for us to make that happen. And who knows what happens in future. So
okay. Well, talking about overconfident men, I know someone else who's a big fan of golf. His name's Donald Trump. Would you accept an invitation? This is actually quite a serious. Would you accept an invitation to Mar-a-Lago to have a few rounds of golf? I mean, do you think that we should be talking to people that we might not necessarily agree with?
you sure they're going to invite me? Because I'm too good at golf. So yeah, I'm really good at it.
I mean, that's a match I would love to see. But if you had that time with him, is there a message that you would like him to hear from your perspective?
I think right now in the world, when we think about just what's happening, like, I know in this room right now, we are just so focused on, like, let's talk about women in business, and it sounds all nice, but like as soon as we step out, we're worried about many things that are happening right now, like what's happening between Israel and Iran, what's happening in Gaza to 2 million people, what's happening to women and girls in Afghanistan, and the list goes on and on. And just looking at the US role in that has been really disappointing. The US has so much power, so much influence that it has not used for actually bringing peace, for bringing stability and really protecting human rights. So I do hope that the US will do more, firstly for women in Afghanistan, and step up and help build more global pressure on the Taliban. I hope that they will stand with the Afghan women, side with those activists, bring them to the forefront. And I hope that the US will do more to stop the Israeli genocide in Gaza, push for a ceasefire, allow humanitarian aid in. Like, these are the things we cannot look away from. And really, I think I just hope that they realize there is just so much in their hands. They can save lives. That's what I'll remind them. They can save lives, and they should act immediately.
Thank you. Now, I find your relationship with your father very, very beautiful, and I was just thinking about it. In your lifetime, you've seen the worst of men, but you've also seen the best of men. You've got a wonderful husband, 2 great brothers, and your father, who you've described as your best friend. And I've just written down the tribute that you made to him on Instagram, so I'll just read it back to the room. And it says, "I know how lucky I am to have a supportive father, someone who stood up for me through difficult periods of my life. The misogyny and discrimination I experienced as a girl were not unique, but the role my father played in allowing me to thrive was. With his support, the outside world felt less frightening." Now, for those of us in the world who don't have, a supportive, father or a male figure, what would you like to say to men about what they can do and how much power they have to bring about increased gender equality in the world?
Yeah, men. I wonder what they have to do with misogyny and patriarchy. Maybe tiny bit. I think men have such an important role to play in this mission of gender equality. We all acknowledge, and we all have said this repeatedly, that when we talk about gender equality, we mean equality for everybody. And we also are talking about how the inequality affects men as well. It's connected with the mental health. It's connected with how some of these patriarchal norms are still thriving. So it is a collective effort to ensure that there's equality for everybody, and men have a role to play, just as men in society, but also as family members, as fathers, as brothers, as husbands, as colleagues, and I would just remind them that you have so much that you can do. You can be an ally of women. You can stand by them. You could advocate for them. You could speak out for them, and sometimes you could just take a step back to just give them the room to go forward. So all of these options are available all the time, and I'm so lucky that I had a supportive father, because after that I was like, that's the standard, like that's the minimum that I expect. So of course, I found a great husband, and But I think it just, the men you see around you, they can really help you set better and bigger expectations for how you should be treated.
Mm. And you and your husband are actually working on research together. How is that working out?
It's going really well because I'm the boss and I have the final say. So no problem there at all. No, he's acknowledged it. He calls himself like a COO. He's more like the operations person. And I think from day one, he just knew it. He knew how to resolve it before it even, we got there.
Yeah, the good advice, just like you said, stand back and allow the true power to the front. Now, you've done, I think, in your lifetime, you've done so much more than I think most people do across 40, 50, 60, 70 years of life. And I know it's hard to think about the future, but do you ever think about what a satisfying legacy would be? Is there going to be a point where you think, you know what, I've done enough now, I'm just going to, potter about on the golf course?
If you had asked me this question when I was 15, I would have said, I want to see a world where every girl can go to school and the number of out-of-school girls is 0. That still remains my dream. But as I get older and I see just the reality of how things work, I have realized that it's really about power. It's really about resources. So I do hope that we live in a world where girls are treated seriously, they have more resources, they have more power, they are in the decision-making rooms, they have the capital to make their visions, to make their vision a reality. So that's the world that I hope for. I always think about this in terms of my own story, to be known as a girl who fought for her rights and was a teenage activist. I started Malala Fund when I was still a teenager and in school. Like, I was under 18. Somebody else had to sign those documents for me. And when I look back, I realize how incredible it was for me to get that support when people believed in my work. And I've been running, we've been working on this organization for 10 years and we have made it happen. So, but just looking at how this is not really the case when it comes to investing in girls. And I think girls and young women receive only 2% of the philanthropic aid in the US. And if you look at just data, you realize that girls are not treated as serious contributors. They're brought in to give an emotional speech and to make everybody cry and to make everybody feel, yes, this is very, very important. But we need to go beyond that. So my hope is that in the future, girls are in the decision-making rooms. They are leading things, and they have the capital, they have the resources to really bring the change that they want to see.
And I'm going to open up for questions in just a second. We've got 2.5 minutes. You've been through quite a lot. Public scrutiny. It's difficult I think, to live a life that way. What has kept you happy and grounded these years?
I think scrutiny is always there, and to be honest, there are a few reasons for it. One is how people just deliberately do not fact check. For instance, one scrutiny I've been facing is silence over Gaza or something like this. But I have spoken about it many times since 2014. I have also been using my platform to raise awareness about it and have contributed to donations to rebuild schools from 2014 to then 2021, 2023, and and in the past few years as well, just giving emergency grants to the organizations who are helping so many children in Gaza right now. And I also think that in times like these, when we have to talk about really important and bigger issues, whether that's what's happening in Afghanistan, whether that's what's happening in Gaza, we should not forget that we're all on the same side and we're all speaking for the same cause. And we should be spending more time on our collective advocacy than sort of, fighting each other, because that does not help what the bigger mission is. And in the end, I think for me, it's keep on speaking what you believe in. So I stay focused on that, and but I guess it's just part of the work anyway. So you do get used to it, and I don't let myself get distracted by that.
Fantastic. Okay, so any questions for Malala? I can't see because the lights. I'm just going to check the little iPad here. Oh, I can't get it to work. Oh, yeah, we've got a question right here at the front.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, that's very loud.
Yeah, and please tell us who you are.
Yeah, sure. I'm Kylie Bromley. So thank you very much. It's amazing to hear from you and from the previous speakers as well. So I'm the mother of two daughters, 16 and 13, who think, one just finished GCSEs yesterday and she thinks the biggest problem in the world is her GCSE results. And certainly listening to Julia earlier and the King's Fund research around the generational gap in terms of their beliefs of gender equality is very concerning for this generation. And I think most of us in this room, many of us anyway, speaking for myself, our kids are incredibly privileged. They haven't lived certainly nothing like the life that you've lived. They're not exposed to a lot of the challenges in the world. And I'm just wondering, hearing the earlier discussion and from your experience, how do we educate this next generation to think differently and to start really appreciating that there is still this incredible gap around the world, and take them on that journey and ensure that they become advocates for change moving forward?
So I have two younger brothers, and they are a project, and I'm so lucky. I have a very feminist father at home, and they have seen my story. But I think even then, the ideas that boys get exposed to can be really concerning. And I have had moments when I had to correct my brothers, just help them understand things differently, because they're influenced by their peers more than their family members or or their sisters. So it's really important for us to have conversations more often. That's something that I think we can do just within our own family, more open conversations. And then I also think that when it comes to conversations around women's rights, we have to engage men, because I think a lot of us in the room agree, we nod. So I do think sometimes about how are we reaching to people who actually don't agree and who have completely different perspective around some of these topics. We can use our platforms, our reach. We can use different ways to actually promote that. Social media can be used positively for that, TV content and those things as well. So we need to just be aware of it and be conscious that there's more we need to do.
And we've definitely run out of time, but the online audience, I'm here for you. There is a great question, and I think it's fantastic. What have you learned to stop doing to make progress? This is a question from online.
Wow, that's a great question.
It is.
To stop doing. I think when initially I started working at Malala Fund, I felt like we needed to do everything. And, can we be a convener? Can we be girls focused? Can we be a grant maker? Can we be an advocacy organization? There's plenty of options in front of you. And with time, I have realized that you have to narrow it down to the things that are unique to you. So I think about using my reach and my access to raise money for girls' education and then allocate them to the local activists who are doing the work on the ground. So I think supporting local activists is really powerful. And then at the same time, using your global stage and global platform for global advocacy is really critical. And another thing which I'm actually working on is I don't know what I have left behind, but I do know that I'm going to be doing more of this, is giving grants to girl and women-led organizations. And at least 20% of all Malala Fund grants in all of these countries would be going to them. That's part of our next 5-year strategic plan. Because as I mentioned, the money that goes to women and girls is very little. So we need to change that. And I realize that I'll be asking everybody else to change that approach, but we have to start within our own organization at Malala Fund. So that's something that I'll be taking forward. And I hope that, one day it could be 100%.
And who's the most famous person you've got in your phone book that you can just call up and say, hey, Michelle, hey, Barack, what's...
so many, and if I name one, the rest will just get offended. Like, why do you think I'm not the most famous? So
All right, I've definitely taken some liberties. I mean, Malala, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
And you could just leave the stage. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for running over, but I think it was definitely worth it. Now, I would really just like to welcome to the stage